blood wouldn't come off my hands. I scrubbed until my skin was raw, the scalding water turning my fingers lobster red, but I could still see it, dark crimson beneath my fingernails, in the creases of my knuckles. Not physically there anymore, but imprinted on my vision, like staring at the sun too long. 3 weeks have passed since the incident at Rosie's roadside haven. 3 weeks since I broke rule number 7. 3 weeks since Larry Wilkins's body was found in the walk-in freezer, his face frozen in an expression I still see when I close my eyes. My therapist says writing this down might help. I'm not convinced, but here I am, typing away in a motel room just outside Wichita, as far as I could get from Shallow Creek while still keeping my appointments. She says I need to start from the beginning, so I guess that means how I ended up in that godforsaken town in the first place. My name's Mike Donovan. 5 months ago, I was a junior account executive at a marketing firm in Chicago with a decent apartment, a girlfriend named Elise, and what I thought was a normal life stretching ahead of me. Then came the panic attacks, the drinking, the missed deadlines. The final straw was when I passed out during a client presentation. By evening, my desk was cleared out, my career in tatters. Elise stuck around for exactly 2 more weeks before she too decided I was more trouble than I was worth. Can't really blame her. With no job, mounting bills, and Chicago winters being what they are, I called the only family I had left, my Uncle Ray. He'd moved to Kansas 15 years ago after retiring from the Postal Service, bought a little house outside a town called Shallow Creek, population 847, according to the weathered sign I passed on my way in. "You can stay as long as you need," he told me over the phone, his voice gruff but kind. Plenty of room since Martha passed. I packed everything I cared about into my 2012 Honda Civic and drove the 9 hours southwest, watching the Chicago skyline shrink in my rearview mirror, then disappear entirely. The highways gave way to state routes, which narrowed to county roads, until finally I was driving down a 2-lane strip of asphalt, cutting through fields so flat and vast, they made me dizzy. Uncle Ray's house was exactly as I remembered from childhood visits. A simple ranch-style home with peeling white paint and a front porch that sagged slightly in the middle. He greeted me with an awkward hug and showed me to the spare bedroom, which smelled faintly of mothballs and old books. "You'll need work," he said over dinner that first night. "Meatloaf and instant mashed potatoes. Not much around here unless you know farming, but Rosie's always hiring. Turnover's high." Rosie's, I would soon learn, was Rosie's Roadside Haven, a 24-hour diner sitting at the intersection of Highway 54 and a county road that didn't seem to have a proper name. Just a nondescript building with a neon sign, serving as a pit stop for truckers and the occasional tourist heading west toward Colorado. "Why's turnover so high?" I asked, shoveling potatoes into my mouth. I hadn't realized how hungry I was after the long drive. Uncle Ray's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully. "Night shift's tough," he said eventually. "Strange hours, strange customers. Rosie has specific ways of doing things." I should have paid more attention to his hesitation, the way his eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. Should have asked more questions. But I was tired and desperate, and frankly, a job was a job. I needed money, and waiting tables couldn't be that hard, right? The next morning, I drove to Rosie's. The parking lot was nearly empty. Just an ancient pickup truck and a semi parked around back. A bell jingled as I pushed open the glass door, and I got my first look at the place that would change my life forever. Looking back now, I realized there were signs from the very beginning. The strange symbols etched into the countertop. The way the old jukebox in the corner played even when it wasn't plugged in. The rules framed behind the register, typed on yellowed paper. But I didn't see any of that then. All I saw was a chance to start over. If only I'd walked away. Hello, viewers. If you wish your stories or experiences to be narrated by me, share them on our own subreddit, which you can join from the description below. I will pick the stories from the community and narrate them, and every once in a while, we will host a 3-hour story compilation. The first person I met at Rosie's was Betty, a waitress in her 60s with bottle red hair piled high on her head and reading glasses dangling from a beaded chain around her neck. She was wiping down tables when I walked in and barely looked up when the bell chimed. "Help you?" she asked, her voice scratchy from decades of cigarettes. "I'm looking for Rosie. My uncle Ray Donovan said there might be a job opening." Betty's hands stilled. She straightened, giving me a once-over that made me feel like I was being x-rayed. "Rosie doesn't do interviews before noon. Come back at 12:30. I glanced at my watch, 9:17 a.m. "I could wait," I offered. "Maybe get some breakfast?" Betty shrugged. "Suit yourself. Coffee's fresh." I slid into a booth near the window and ordered eggs and bacon from a teenage waitress, whose name tag read Amber. The place was nearly empty. Just a trucker at the counter, nursing a coffee, and an elderly couple in the far corner sharing a slice of pie. I took in the details I'd missed on first glance. The diner was classic Americana, red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floor, chrome accents everywhere. But there was something off about it. The ceiling fans spun counterclockwise for one thing, and the walls were lined with framed photographs, not of local landmarks or high school sports teams, but of empty roads stretching into darkness. At precisely noon, a door behind the counter swung open, and out walked a woman I presumed to be Rosie. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with streaks of gray in her dark hair, and eyes so pale they looked almost colorless. She moved with purpose, checking the register, speaking briefly to the cook through the service window, and finally turning her gaze to me. Without a word, she walked over and sat across from me. "You're Ray's nephew?" Not a question. "Yes, ma'am. Mike Donovan." I extended my hand, which she ignored. "You want the night shift job?" Again, not a question. Yes, I could use the work." She studied me with those pale eyes. "Why'd you leave Chicago?" I blinked in surprise. I hadn't mentioned Chicago. I needed a change of scenery." She drummed her fingers on the table. Her nails were bitten to the quick. "Night shift is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Sunday through Thursday. $15 an hour plus tips. Not that you'll get many after midnight." It was better than I expected for rural Kansas. "That sounds fine." "It's not fine. It's necessary." She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "These are the rules. Read them. Memorize them. Your life depends on following them." I chuckled, thinking she was joking. Her expression didn't change. I unfolded the paper. "Rules for night shift at Rosie's. All doors must be unlocked at all times. Never engage the deadbolt, even if someone is trying to get in. If the phone rings exactly 3 times, answer it. If it rings any more or less, let it go to voicemail. The jukebox will play by itself sometimes. If it selects B7, unplug it immediately. Between 2:15 a.m. and 4 a.m., do not look out the windows. If a customer orders something not on the menu, politely decline. Do not offer alternatives. If you see a child alone in the parking lot, do not go outside. Call Rosie immediately, regardless of the time. The bathroom in the far back is for employees only. If a customer insists on using it, direct them to the public restrooms. No exceptions." I looked up, a smile still frozen on my face. This is some kind of initiation joke, right? Do I look like I'm joking? Rosie leaned forward. There have been 5 night shift employees in the last year. 3 quit. 1 is in Western State Hospital. 1 is missing. My mouth went dry. Missing? Todd Maycomb, 27. Moved here from Topeka. Last seen taking out trash at 3:48 a.m. on December 12th. Security camera shows him walking to the dumpster. Never comes back into frame. She delivered this information flatly, as if discussing the weather. I swallowed hard. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You need to follow the rules. She tapped the paper. Memorize them. First shift is Sunday night. Betty will train you on the register tomorrow. I haven't said I'll take the job. Rosie stood up. You'll take it. You need money, and there's nowhere else hiring within 50 miles. Unless you want to work the night shift at the Conoco on Highway 54, but I wouldn't recommend it. She paused. Their rules are more complicated. With that, she walked away, disappearing through the door she'd come from. I sat there staring at the list. Part of me wanted to crumple it up, walk out and keep driving until I hit Colorado. But Rosie was right. I needed the money. And how dangerous could a diner in rural Kansas really be? Pretty damn dangerous, as it turned out. I pocketed the list and paid for my breakfast. As I was leaving, I noticed Betty watching me from behind the counter. Word of advice, city boy, she called after me. Rule number 4? That's the one you really don't want to break. Why's that? I asked. She shook her head. Because sometimes what's looking in is also looking back. The bell jingled as I pushed through the door, stepping into the bright Kansas sunshine. I squinted up at the cloudless blue sky, trying to shake the chill that had settled in my bones, despite the warmth of the day. On the drive back to Uncle Ray's, I found myself glancing in the rearview mirror more often than necessary, watching the diner shrink in the distance until it was just a dot on the horizon, then nothing at all. But even when I couldn't see it anymore, I still felt like it was watching me. Uncle Ray didn't ask how the interview went when I got back. He just looked up from his newspaper, nodded once, and went back to reading. The TV droned in the background, a weatherman excitedly describing an approaching storm system. I wondered if my uncle already knew about Rosie's rules, if everyone in Shallow Creek did. Saturday, Betty trained me on the register, the grill, and the coffee machines. The diner was busier than I expected, mainly locals grabbing lunch after church or running weekend errands. Betty was efficient, but not chatty, calling out orders in a clipped tone and sliding plates across the counter with practiced precision. The night shift is different, she said as we wiped down tables during a lull. Slower, mostly. Truckers and insomniacs until about midnight. Then it gets quiet. The way she emphasized quiet made my skin prickle. About those rules, I ventured. Betty's eyes flicked to the door behind the counter, Rosie's office. Follow them, she said simply. All of them. No exceptions. But why? You Chicago boys always need to know the why of everything. She shook her head. Some things just are, like tornadoes or flash floods. You don't ask why they happen. You just get out of the way. I tried a different approach. Has anything ever happened here during the night shift? Betty straightened, wincing as her back cracked. Finish up in the kitchen. I'll show you where the cleaning supplies are kept. I recognized a deflection when I heard one. The rest of the training passed uneventfully, Betty carefully avoiding any topic related to the rules or night shift incidents. Sunday came faster than I would have liked. I tried to nap in the afternoon to prepare for my first overnight shift, but sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I stared at the ceiling fan in Uncle Ray's spare room, my mind churning through all the possibilities of what might happen after dark at Rosie's. Uncle Ray caught me on my way out at 9:30 p.m. Mike, he called from his recliner, where he was watching a Royals game. I paused at the door. Be careful tonight. It's just a diner job, Uncle Ray. His eyes, so much like my father's, held mine. Shallow Creek isn't like Chicago. Night has different rules here. So I've gathered, I muttered. I'm serious, son. Follow Rosie's rules. To the letter. Did you know about all this when you suggested I apply there? He sighed heavily. It's the only job around that pays decent wages. Just be smart, okay? With that cryptic warning echoing in my head, I drove to Rosie's. The sky was already dark, stars pricking the vast Kansas emptiness above. No light pollution out here to dim them. I arrived 20 minutes early. The evening shift waitress, a 40-something woman named Diane with tired eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, barely acknowledged me as I clocked in. The diner had a few customers, a family with 2 sleepy kids in a booth, probably heading back from visiting relatives, a pair of truckers at the counter, and a lone man in the corner, nursing a coffee and reading a dog-eared paperback. Coffee makers full, registers counted, cook leaves at 11. Diane rattled off as she untied her apron. You're on your own after that. Wait, I'm the only one here after 11? I hadn't expected that. Welcome to the night shift. She grabbed her purse from under the counter. Oh, and the storm's supposed to hit around 2 a.m., might lose power. Generator kicks in automatically. She paused at the door. Good luck. And then she was gone, the bell jingling in her wake. By midnight, the diner was empty. I'd served a few late customers, more truckers, a couple of college kids road-tripping to Colorado, an older woman who ordered pie but just picked at it while staring out the window. Standard stuff. The cook, a taciturn man named Hector who communicated mostly in grunts, left at 11 as promised, showing me where the pre-made sandwiches were kept for the rare late-night order. The kitchen felt cavernous and too quiet without him. At 12:47 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. I looked up from where I was restocking napkin dispensers to see a man in a worn denim jacket step inside. Something about him immediately set me on edge, maybe the too wide smile, or the way his eyes seemed fixed on a point just above my head instead of making direct contact. Evening, he said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. His voice had an odd quality to it, like it was coming through a bad phone connection. Or I suppose it's morning now, isn't it? Good morning, I corrected automatically. What can I get you? He scanned the laminated menu I placed before him, that too wide smile never faltering. I'll have the special, he said finally. I frowned. The breakfast special doesn't start until 5 a.m. I can get you a sandwich or... No, the special. He winked, and I swear his eyelid made a clicking sound as it closed and opened. The one that's not on the menu. Rule number 5 flashed in my mind. If a customer orders something not on the menu, politely decline. Do not offer alternatives. My mouth went dry. I'm sorry, sir. We only serve what's listed on the menu. For a moment, his smile faltered. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered once, briefly, though the storm wasn't supposed to hit for hours yet. Are you sure? He pressed. Rosie usually makes an exception for me. I can call her if you'd like, I offered, knowing full well I had no intention of doing so. The man stared at me, his smile gone now. Then, abruptly, it returned, wider than before, stretching his face in a way that didn't seem anatomically possible. No need. I'll have a coffee, black. I poured it with slightly shaking hands, setting it before him with a manufactured smile of my own. He didn't touch it, just watched the steam rise from the mug. First night? He asked conversationally. I nodded. Thought so. I can always tell. He leaned forward. You'll get used to it, or you won't. A pause. Most don't. The jukebox in the corner suddenly crackled to life, though no one had approached it. A scratchy jazz tune filled the diner, something old that I didn't recognize. I glanced at the selection display. A 12, not B7. Relief washed through me. When I looked back, the man was gone. His coffee sat untouched, still steaming. The bell hadn't jingled. I stood frozen, staring at the empty stool. Then I noticed something on the counter where he'd been sitting, a small puddle of what looked like water, but darker, with an oily sheen. I grabbed a rag to wipe it up, then thought better of it and used a napkin instead, careful not to let it touch my skin. The song on the jukebox ended, and silence fell again, heavier than before. The wall clock read 1:17 a.m. Outside, the first distant rumble of thunder announced the approach of the storm. I still had nearly 5 hours to go, and the night was just beginning. The minutes crawled by with excruciating slowness. I checked my phone periodically, but reception was spotty. Just one flickering bar that disappeared completely as the storm drew closer. I'd wiped down every surface twice, refilled all the condiments, and was now just sitting on a stool behind the counter, staring at the swinging kitchen door, and trying not to jump at every creak and groan of the old building. At 1:44 a.m., the phone rang. I nearly leapt out of my skin at the sudden shrill sound cutting through the silence. It rang once, twice, 3 times exactly, then stopped. Rule number 2. If the phone rings exactly 3 times, answer it. If it rings any more or less, let it go to voicemail. I hesitated for only a second before picking up the receiver. "Rosie's Roadside Haven," I answered, my voice steadier than I felt. Silence on the other end. Then a soft, rhythmic sound, breathing maybe, or something else entirely. I waited, every muscle tense. "Hello?" I tried again. The breathing, if that's what it was, grew louder, more labored, then faintly a whisper. "Look outside." I swallowed hard. "Who is this?" Not yet. The voice was neither male nor female, young nor old. It simply was. But soon, at 2:15, look outside. Rule number 4 flashed through my mind. Between 2:15 a.m. and 4 a.m., do not look out the windows. "I don't think I will," I said, surprised by my own boldness. A sound came through the receiver then. Something between a laugh and a gurgle, wet and unpleasant. Smart boy. But curiosity is such a human trait, isn't it? So hard to resist. The line went dead. I replaced the receiver with a shaking hand. The wall clock showed 1:49 a.m. The storm was getting closer. I could hear the wind picking up, whistling around the corners of the building and rattling the windows in their frames. At 2:03 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. An elderly man stepped inside, soaked from the rain that had just started falling. He wore an old-fashioned suit, slightly too large for his frail frame, and carried a battered leather briefcase. "Terrible night to be out," he commented, taking a seat at the counter. Water pooled beneath his shoes on the checkered floor. "But I always stop at Rosie's on my route." "What route is that?" I asked, placing the menu before him. "Oh, here and there." He waved vaguely. "Coffee, please. Black." I poured him a cup, noting that his hands were dry despite his drenched appearance. The oddity registered, but I pushed it aside. He seemed normal enough compared to my earlier customer. "Passing through?" I asked, desperate for ordinary conversation. In a manner of speaking. He sipped his coffee, eyes closing briefly in appreciation. "I'm a collector." "Of what?" "Moments, mostly." He set down his cup. "The significant ones. First kiss, last breath, that sort of thing." A chill ran through me. Sounds like an interesting job. He smiled, revealing teeth that seemed too numerous for a human mouth. "It has its rewards." He checked the gold pocket watch. "It's nearly time." "Time for what?" 2:15. He nodded toward the windows. "That's when they come." Thunder crashed directly overhead, and the lights flickered ominously. When they stabilized, the old man was gone, just like the previous customer. His coffee cup remained, empty now, with what looked like teeth marks on the rim. The clock read 2:14 a.m. Rain lashed against the windows, distorting the view of the parking lot. Lightning flashed, momentarily illuminating the scene outside. The empty parking lot, the highway beyond, the vast darkness of the Kansas plains. Between 2:15 a.m. and 4 a.m., do not look out the windows. Something tapped on the glass. I froze, coffee pot still in hand, eyes fixed firmly on the countertop. The tapping came again, more insistent this time. Tap, tap, tap. Don't look up, don't look up. Lightning flashed again, and despite my determination, my eyes betrayed me, flicking upward for just a split second. In that brief illumination, I caught a glimpse of something pressed against the window nearest the door. Not a face exactly, but face adjacent. Features in all the wrong places, arranged in a configuration that hurt to look at. I dropped my gaze immediately, heart hammering. The tapping continued, moving from window to window around the diner. I kept my eyes resolutely on the counter, focusing on wiping the same spot over and over. "Hello?" A voice called from outside, familiar, normal. "Mike? You in there?" It sounded exactly like Uncle Ray. "Don't look up." "Mike, my truck broke down. I need help. Let me in." I gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. "Mike, please. It's pouring out here." The voice was so convincing, identical to my uncle's gruff baritone, down to the slight Kansas drawl he'd acquired over the years. But I knew Uncle Ray was home, asleep in his recliner in front of the TV. "You're not my uncle," I said aloud, still staring at the counter. The voice changed, becoming higher, sweeter. "Mikey?" "It's Mom." My breath caught. My mother had died when I was 14. "Mikey, I've missed you so much. Just look at me, baby. Let me see how you've grown." Tears pricked at my eyes. It sounded exactly like her. The gentle lilt, the way she'd always called me Mikey, even when I complained I was too old for that nickname. "Look at me," the voice pleaded, and for a moment, I almost did. My head began to lift of its own accord. Then the jukebox suddenly blared to life, startling me back to awareness. I glanced at the selection display out of instinct. B7. If the jukebox selects B7, unplug it immediately. I bolted across the diner, careful to keep my gaze away from the windows. The jukebox was playing something that might have once been music, but was now just discordant noise, mechanical shrieks interspersed with what sounded horribly like screams. I reached behind the machine, found the plug, and yanked it from the socket. The music stopped abruptly, leaving only the sound of the rain and thunder, and the continued tapping at the windows. "Why won't you look at us, Mike?" Another voice called, this one unfamiliar. "Everyone else does, eventually." The diner's lights flickered, then went out completely. For one terrifying moment, I was in total darkness, knowing the windows were just a few feet away, knowing whatever was outside could see me, even if I couldn't see it. Then, with a mechanical groan, the backup generator kicked in. Emergency lights came on, bathing the diner in a dim, reddish glow. The tapping had stopped. I cautiously returned to my position behind the counter, still keeping my eyes down. The wall clock, now illuminated by the emergency lighting, showed 2:47 a.m., over an hour to go. The phone rang again, 1, 2, 3 times. I picked it up. "Having fun?" It was the same voice as before, now tinged with amusement. "What do you want?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Want?" "Oh, nothing much. Just a little peek, a little acknowledgement. It's rude to ignore visitors, you know." "You're not visitors," I said. "Whatever you are." "Semantics." The voice chuckled wetly. We've been coming to Rosie's for longer than you've been alive. Long before Rosie, even. This place has always been special. Why? What's so special about a diner in the middle of nowhere?" The voice was silent for a moment. Thin spots, Mike Donovan. Places where the walls between, let's call them realities, aren't as solid as they should be. Your world leaks into ours. Ours leaks into yours. Usually just a trickle, but sometimes, between 2:15 and 4 a.m. for instance, the flow becomes a flood. A crash from the kitchen made me jump. It sounded like pots and pans being thrown. "I need to go," I said. "They're getting impatient." The voice agreed. "One more thing, Mike. About rule number 7. The line went dead again. I hung up, my hands trembling. The crashing from the kitchen grew louder, more insistent. Something was in there, moving around. I glanced at the far back of the diner, where a narrow hallway led to the bathrooms. The employee bathroom, the one mentioned in rule number 7, was at the very end, its door slightly ajar. The bathroom in the far back is for employees only. If a customer insists on using it, direct them to the public restrooms. No exceptions. The kitchen doors swung open suddenly, violently. I caught a glimpse of movement, something large and dark, dragging itself across the floor. I didn't wait to see more. I dove behind the counter, pressing myself into the narrow space between the register and the coffee maker. The thing from the kitchen moved through the diner. I couldn't see it from my hiding place, but I could hear it. A wet, slithering sound, punctuated by what might have been footsteps, if feet made squelching noises against linoleum. It paused, as if searching. Then slowly, the sounds moved away, toward the hallway, toward the employee bathroom at the back. The diner fell silent again, except for the storm outside. I stayed hidden, barely breathing, until the clock showed 3:30 a.m. One more hour until I could look outside again. One more hour until whatever ritual or phenomenon was occurring would end. I just had to stay hidden, stay quiet, and above all, keep following the rules. The rest of the diner's night shift suddenly made a lot more sense. At exactly 4:01 a.m., the emergency lights flickered, then the main power returned. The fluorescent bulbs hummed to life, bathing the diner in harsh white light. I uncurled from my hiding spot, muscles aching from being cramped for so long. The diner looked normal. The tables and chairs were all in place, the checkered floor clean and dry, despite the muddy footprints I had expected from whatever had dragged itself through. The only evidence of anything unusual was the jukebox, still unplugged, its selection display frozen on B7. I checked the kitchen first, flipping on every light switch. Nothing was out of place. No pots or pans on the floor. No sign of disturbance. I even checked the walk-in freezer, half expecting to find something horrible inside. There was nothing but boxes of frozen burger patties and bags of French fries. Only then did I venture down the hallway toward the employee bathroom. The door was closed now, though I distinctly remembered it being ajar earlier. I stood before it, hand hovering over the knob. Should I look inside? What if something's waiting? My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message, finally getting through now that the storm had passed. It was from Uncle Ray. "Everything okay?" I texted back. "All good. Storm was bad. Power went out for a bit." His reply came quickly. "First night's always the worst. Almost done." Almost done. The clock showed 4:17 a.m., less than 2 hours left in my shift. I backed away from the bathroom door, deciding that whatever might be behind it could stay there. Rule number 7 didn't say anything about not using the employee bathroom myself, just not letting customers use it. but I wasn't taking any chances. At 4:30 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. I tensed, but it was just a trucker, a heavy-set man in his 50s with a salt and pepper beard and bleary eyes. "Coffee black," he grunted, settling his considerable bulk onto a stool at the counter. "Strong as you can make it." I poured him a cup, studying him for any signs of abnormality. He seemed completely normal, just tired and caffeine-deprived. "Nasty storm," he commented, warming his hands on the mug. "Thought I was gonna have to pull over on the highway. Couldn't see a damn thing." "Where you headed?" I asked, grateful for ordinary conversation. "Denver. Got a shipment of farm equipment." He took a long sip. "You're new." "First night." He nodded knowingly. "Thought so. Got that look about you." "What look is that?" "Like you've seen too much, but are pretending you haven't." He shrugged. "Everyone who works the night shift here gets it eventually." I glanced at the windows, now showing nothing but darkness and my own reflection. "You come through here a lot?" "Once a month or so. Route 54 is the fastest way to get where I'm going." He finished his coffee and pushed the mug toward me for a refill. "Rosie still have those rules posted?" My hand stilled over the coffee pot. "You know about the rules? Been stopping here for 15 years?" He accepted the fresh coffee with a nod of thanks. "Used to think it was just Rosie being superstitious. Bunch of nonsense." His expression darkened. "Then I stopped here one night about 7 years back. Middle of winter. Snow coming down like nobody's business. Only customer in the place." He paused, taking a slow sip of his coffee. "The waitress, older lady, don't recall her name, got a phone call. Answered it, then told me she had to go into the back for a few minutes. Made me promise not to look out the windows until she got back." He shook his head. "Thought it was strange, but I figured small towns have their quirks, you know." "But you looked," I gasped. His eyes met mine. "Course I did. I'm sitting there all alone, nothing to do but stare at my coffee or look outside." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "There was someone out there in the snow, standing at the edge of the parking lot, just watching. Too far away to make out clearly, but I could tell they were wearing some kind of old-fashioned clothes, like from a history book." I swallowed. "What happened?" "They saw me looking, started walking toward the diner." His voice had dropped to almost a whisper. "But they weren't walking right. Their legs. They bent backwards at the knees. And they moved too fast. Like one of those old silent films where everything's sped up." The trucker drained his coffee. "They reached the window where I was sitting and pressed their face against the glass. I'll never forget that face as long as I live." "What did it look like?" I couldn't help asking. He shook his head. "Don't make me remember. Just don't look out the windows when they tell you not to. There are things out there that shouldn't be seen." We sat in silence for a moment. Then he pulled out his wallet and laid a $5 bill on the counter. "Keep the change." "Thanks." I took the money, hesitating before asking, "Have you ever seen anyone use the employee bathroom?" "The one in the back?" The trucker's expression hardened. "Once. Guy I was sharing a table with. Another driver seemed normal enough. Until he excused himself and headed for the back instead of using the public restrooms." He stood up, gathering his jacket. Waitress tried to stop him. He pushed past her, went right for that back bathroom. "What happened to him?" "Don't know. I left before he came back." He tugged his hat lower over his eyes. "Next time I came through, I asked about him. Rosie claimed she didn't know who I was talking about." With that ominous note, he headed for the door. Just before exiting, he turned back. "Word of advice, if you keep this job, get yourself a cross. Silver, not gold. Keep it with you during your shift." The bell jingled as he left, and I was alone again. By 5 a.m., the sky was beginning to lighten at the edges, the first hints of dawn seeping through the darkness. My shift was almost over. I started the breakfast preparations, brewing fresh coffee, setting up the grill for Hector, who would arrive at 6 a.m. with the morning waitress. At 5:23 a.m., a family of 4 came in, parents with 2 teenage kids, clearly in the middle of a long drive. They were followed shortly by an elderly couple who, according to their conversation, made it a point to have breakfast at Rosie's every Monday morning. Normal customers with normal requests. As I served them, I found myself relaxing for the first time since my shift began. The night's strangeness felt distant in the growing daylight, like a bad dream already fading from memory. Maybe I'd imagined some of it, amplified by nerves and isolation and the storm. At 5:47 a.m., the bathroom door at the far end of the hall opened. The sound of the hinges creaking carried to the front of the diner, audible even over the chatter of the morning customers. I froze, coffee pot in hand. A young woman emerged from the hallway. She wore a flannel shirt and jeans, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She smiled at me as she approached the counter. "Morning," she said cheerfully. "Just passing through. Needed to use your restroom." My mouth went dry. "The public restrooms are..." "Oh, I know. But the lock was broken on the ladies' room. Hope you don't mind that I used the one in the back." She pulled out a wallet. "What do I owe you for the trouble?" I stared at her, unable to form words. She had used the employee bathroom, the one mentioned in rule number 7. Yet here she was, seemingly fine. "No charge," I finally managed. "That's sweet of you." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Well, better get back on the road. Got a long drive ahead." As she turned to leave, I noticed something odd about her movement, a slight stiffness, as if her joints weren't working properly. And the back of her neck, visible just above her collar, had a strange texture to it, less like skin and more like bark. The bell jingled as she exited. Through the windows, now safe to look through in the morning light, I watched her cross the parking lot to a blue sedan. Just before getting in, she turned and waved at the diner. Her smile was too wide, her fingers too long. The morning waitress, a college-age girl named Liv, arrived at 5:58 a.m. She looked surprised to see me. "You made it," she said, tying on her apron. "Most new guys don't." Before I could respond, Rosie emerged from her office, though I hadn't seen her arrive. She surveyed the diner with those pale, almost colorless eyes. "You followed the rules," she stated, not a question. I nodded. "Good." She handed me an envelope, my pay for the night. "See you tomorrow, 10 p.m. As I stepped outside into the morning air, the envelope heavy in my pocket, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd passed some kind of test. The sun was rising over the endless Kansas plains, turning the sky a brilliant orange pink. In the daylight, Rosie's roadside haven looked like any other small-town diner, a bit run down perhaps, but completely ordinary. Nothing about the night had been ordinary, though, and I had 4 more shifts that week. I got into my car, hands still trembling slightly on the steering wheel. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I glanced in my rearview mirror. For just a moment, I thought I saw someone standing at the edge of the lot, a figure in old-fashioned clothes, watching me drive away. I blinked, and they were gone. I slept like the dead all morning and into the afternoon, my body crashing after the adrenaline-fueled night. When I finally woke up, the sun was already starting to dip toward the horizon, painting my bedroom wall with orange light. My dreams had been chaotic and disturbing, faces pressed against glass, voices calling my name, dark shapes slithering across checkered floors. Uncle Ray was in the kitchen when I emerged, fixing himself a sandwich. He looked up as I entered, studying my face. "You look like hell," he commented mildly. "Thanks." I poured myself a cup of coffee from the pot, still warm, on the counter. "Didn't sleep well." "First night's the hardest." He cut his sandwich in half with practiced precision. "Gets easier." I sat across from him at the small kitchen table. "You knew, didn't you? About what happens at Rosie's during the night shift?" He took his time, chewing, swallowing before he answered. "Everyone in Shallow Creek knows something, but no one knows everything. That's how it works around here." "That's not an answer." He sighed, putting down his sandwich. "What do you want me to say, Mike? That I knowingly sent my brother's son into danger? That I should have warned you about the things that tap on the windows, or call on the phone, or play that damn jukebox?" "Yes." "Any of that would have been nice to know beforehand. Would you have believed me?" His eyes, so much like my father's, fixed on mine. "If I'd told you there are things that come in the night at Rosie's diner, would you have taken the job, or thought your old uncle had finally lost his marbles?" He had a point. I would have dismissed it as small-town superstition, the kind of ghost stories people in isolated communities tell to entertain themselves. "So, what is it?" I asked. "What's happening at Rosie's? The trucker I met mentioned something about the place being special." Uncle Ray nodded slowly. "That's one way to put it. Folks around here have different theories. Some say it's built on an old Native American burial ground. Kamsa tribe used to live all through this area. Others think it's something to do with ley lines, or whatever you call them. Energy paths running under the earth." He took a sip of his coffee. "Me, I think it's simpler than that. I think some places just naturally develop thin spots." "Thin spots?" "Between worlds. Or dimensions, I guess you'd call them nowadays." He shrugged. "Places where what should be separate starts to bleed through." The voice on the phone had used almost the same words. Thin spots. Places where the walls between realities aren't as solid as they should be. "How long has it been like this?" I asked. "Long as anyone can remember. The diner's changed names and owners over the years. Used to be called The Crossroads, before Rosie bought it in the 90s. Before that, it was Midnight Eats. Always been a 24-hour joint, though." He finished his sandwich. "Always had rules, too. They change sometimes, get updated when incidents occur." "Incidents like what happened to Todd Maycomb?" I remembered Rosie mentioning a missing employee. Uncle Ray's expression darkened. "Among others. And you still sent me there." "It's a job, Mike. Pays well, hours are regular, and if you follow the rules, you're fine." His tone softened slightly. "And I figured, with what you went through in Chicago, maybe you'd be better prepared than most." I froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" He met my eyes steadily. "Elise called me before you came, told me what happened. My heart pounded in my chest. She had no right. She was worried about you. Said you'd been seeing things that weren't there. Having episodes." He held up a hand as I started to protest. "I'm not judging. God knows I've had my own battles. But fact is, people who've already seen through the cracks sometimes do better at Rosie's. They're primed for it, I guess you could say." My throat tightened. What had happened in Chicago? The hallucinations, the paranoia that eventually cost me my job and relationship, wasn't something I liked to think about, let alone discuss. The doctors had called it a psychotic break brought on by stress and exhaustion. They'd given me pills that made me feel hollow and prescribed therapy I couldn't afford. "I'm better now," I said stiffly. "I know you are." Uncle Ray stood and placed his plate in the sink. "Just saying, maybe what you experienced there prepared you for here." Maybe there's a reason you ended up in Shallow Creek." "Yeah, because I had nowhere else to go," I muttered. "Maybe." He didn't sound convinced. "Get some more rest. You've got another shift tonight." I spent the remainder of the afternoon researching Rosie's on my laptop. There wasn't much. A few reviews on travel sites from people who'd stopped for a meal while passing through. Nothing mentioning anything strange. I expanded my search to the history of Shallow Creek itself and found a bit more. The town had been established in 1867, founded by settlers moving west after the Civil War. Before that, the land had indeed belonged to the Kansas tribe, though there was no specific mention of burial grounds in the area. A few old newspaper articles mentioned strange occurrences at what was then called the Crossroads Diner, dating back to the 1950s, but details were scarce. One article from 1978 reported 3 patrons missing after a late-night stop at Midnight Eats, but the case was apparently never solved. The most recent incident I could find was from 5 years ago, a brief mention in the Shallow Creek Gazette about a disturbance at Rosie's that required police involvement. No details were provided. I arrived for my second night shift 10 minutes early, stomach knotted with apprehension. Betty was finishing up the evening shift, looking as tired and unimpressed as ever. "You're back," she observed, counting out the register. "Apparently." I tied on my apron. "Huh." She seemed genuinely surprised. "Most don't come back after the first night." "So, I've heard." She handed me the register key. "Rosie left something for you, in the office." I headed to the small room behind the counter. Rosie wasn't there, but on the desk was a small paper bag with my name scrawled on it. Inside was a silver cross on a simple chain, along with a note. "Wear it. R." I slipped the chain over my head, tucking the cross under my shirt. Its weight was oddly comforting against my chest. Betty was gone when I emerged, the diner empty except for a middle-aged woman nursing a cup of tea in the corner booth. She left shortly after, leaving me alone as the clock ticked toward midnight. The second night was quieter than the first. No storm, no power outage. A few truckers stopped for coffee and sandwiches, and a group of college kids came in around 1 a.m., loud and slightly drunk, ordering mountains of French fries and milkshakes. They were clearly passing through, probably heading back to KU and Lawrence after a weekend trip. The normalcy was almost disappointing after the intensity of the previous night. Had I imagined some of it? Exaggerated the strangeness in my mind. At 1:58 a.m., the phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. I picked it up. "Miss me?" It was the voice from last night. "Not particularly," I replied, trying to sound bored rather than terrified. The voice chuckled. "Grave tonight, aren't we?" "That's good. Courage will serve you well here. What do you want?" "Company, mostly. The nights are long between worlds." A pause. "You're wearing Rosie's cross." I can hear it humming. I touched the silver pendant through my shirt. "What do you mean, hear it?" "Silver disrupts the flow, creates static in the connection, makes it harder for us to reach through." The voice sounded mildly annoyed. "A crude but effective precaution. Then why are you calling?" "To warn you." The voice grew serious. "There's been a change in the pattern. Something new is pushing at the boundaries." "What does that mean?" "It means watch for rule number 6 tonight. The child in the parking lot. It's never appeared 2 nights in a row before." My blood ran cold. If you see a child alone in the parking lot, do not go outside. Call Rosie immediately, regardless of the time. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. "Who said I'm helping?" The line went dead. I hung up slowly, uneasiness settling in my stomach. I checked the time, 2:10 a.m. Just 5 minutes before the window-watching prohibition kicked in, I made sure all the blinds were drawn and focused on cleaning the already spotless counter. At 2:15 a.m. exactly, I heard it. A child's laughter coming from the parking lot. Faint at first, then louder, punctuated by what sounded like the bouncing of a ball. Despite the rules, despite what I'd experienced the night before, something about a child's laughter in the dead of night pulled at something primal in me. An instinct to protect, to check if a child was really alone in a deserted parking lot at 2 a.m. I resisted, gripping the counter edge. The laughter continued, now interspersed with a voice, high-pitched, innocent. "Mister, can you help me? I can't find my mom." "Do not go outside. Call Rosie immediately." I reached for the phone and dialed Rosie's number, which was posted next to the register. It rang and rang, with no answer. I tried again with the same result. The child's voice grew more distressed. "Please? I'm scared out here alone." I closed my eyes, trying to block it out. The silver cross felt warm against my skin. "I know you can hear me," the voice called, no longer sounding entirely childlike. "Why won't you help me? Don't you care that I'm all alone in the dark?" The thumping sound grew more intense, no longer like a bouncing ball, but like something heavy being thrown repeatedly against the diner's walls. The lights flickered ominously. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from an unknown number. "Back room. Now." I hesitated, then made a decision. I hurried down the hallway toward the employee bathroom, the one mentioned in rule number 7. The door was closed, but a dim light shone from beneath it. Hand trembling, I turned the knob and pushed the door open. Inside was not a bathroom at all, but a small, cluttered office. Rosie sat behind a desk covered in old books and papers, a cigarette dangling from her lips despite the "no smoking" signs plastered throughout the diner. "Took you long enough," she said, gesturing for me to enter. "Close the door." I stepped inside, pulling the door shut behind me. The thumping sound and the child's pleas were immediately silenced, as if a switch had been flipped. "Rule number 6, Rosie said, tapping ash into a coffee mug serving as an improvised ashtray. "It's getting bold, appearing 2 nights in a row." "What is it?" I asked. "Outside? Nothing you want to meet?" She studied me with those pale eyes. "You're doing better than most. 2 nights in and still sane." "Define sane," I muttered. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Fair point." She opened a drawer and pulled out a leather-bound book. "You want answers. Everyone does at first. Later they just want to survive the shift. I'd like both, if possible." She pushed the book across the desk toward me. "Rosie's isn't just a diner, it's a waypoint." "Between worlds," I said, remembering what both Uncle Ray and the voice on the phone had told me. She nodded. This place has always been a thin spot, long before the diner was built. The Kamsa knew it. They avoided this crossroads, called it the place where shadows walk. She took a long drag of her cigarette. Every night between 2:15 and 4 a.m., the boundaries weaken. Things can push through, not physically usually, but enough to interact, to influence. Why those specific hours? Some say it's astronomical, the position of stars or whatever. Others think it's tied to an event that happened here long ago. Me? I don't much care about the why. I care about the rules that keep us safe. I glanced down at the book she'd given me. The cover was unmarked, the leather cracked with age. "That's a record," Rosie explained. "Every incident, every rule change, every employee who didn't make it, going back almost 70 years. She fixed me with that unsettling stare. "Read it if you want, or don't. But know this, the rules aren't arbitrary. Each one is written in someone's blood. From outside the office, the jukebox suddenly blared to life. I recognized the selection immediately. B7. Go, Rosie said, suddenly alert. Rule number 3. Now. I bolted from the office, the discordant wail of the jukebox growing louder as I entered the main area of the diner. The sound was worse than the previous night. Less like music, and more like the auditory equivalent of a seizure. Notes crashing into each other in patterns that hurt my ears. If the jukebox selects B7, unplug it immediately. I rushed across the room, careful to keep my eyes averted from the windows. The emergency lights had kicked on again, bathing everything in that eerie red glow. The thumping from outside had intensified, now sounding like multiple fists pounding on every wall of the diner simultaneously. I reached behind the jukebox, found the cord, and yanked it free from the socket. The cacophony stopped abruptly, leaving only the sound of the pounding on the walls. For a moment, I thought I'd been too slow, that something had already come through. Then the pounding gradually subsided, fading to nothing. The emergency lights flickered, then the regular fluorescence hummed back to life. The diner returned to its ordinary appearance, as if nothing had happened. Rosie emerged from the back, lighting a fresh cigarette. "Close one," she commented, exhaling a plume of smoke. B7's a distress signal. Makes the barriers more permeable. A distress signal from what? I asked, my heart still racing. From someone trapped on the other side, someone who wants to get through. She checked her watch. 3:17. Less than an hour left of the danger zone. I followed her to the counter, where she poured herself a cup of coffee. "You said the rules are written in blood," I said. "What did you mean by that?" Rosie took a sip of her coffee, grimacing at the taste. "Exactly what it sounds like. Every rule exists because someone broke it first, usually with fatal consequences." She gestured around the empty diner. Rule number 4, about not looking out the windows. That was Carter Williams, 1983, night cook. Got curious about the noises outside. 3 days later, they found him walking along Highway 54, eyes gouged out, repeating, "They only want to be seen," over and over. I swallowed hard. And rule number 7? About the employee bathroom? Something flickered across Rosie's face. Something that might have been fear. Some rules are better left unexplained. She stubbed out her cigarette in a saucer. "I've got inventory to finish. You've got a customer." I turned to see a man standing at the entrance. The bell hadn't rung when he entered. He was in his 30s, wearing jeans and a faded KU Jayhawks hoodie, with the kind of forgettable face that vanishes from memory minutes after you've seen it. "Coffee," he said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. "Black." I poured him a cup, noticing that Rosie had disappeared back into her office. There was something off about this customer. Nothing I could put my finger on, just a sense that he didn't quite belong. "Rough night?" he asked conversationally, wrapping his hands around the mug. "You could say that?" He smiled, revealing perfectly straight, perfectly white teeth. "The night shift at Rosie's is always interesting, especially for newcomers." I stilled. "You're a regular?" In a manner of speaking. He sipped his coffee. "I've been coming to this establishment for quite some time, though I miss the old name, the Crossroads. So much more fitting, don't you think?" "I wouldn't know." "No, I suppose you wouldn't." He studied me over the rim of his mug. "You're different from the others. More receptive. I can tell from the way the frequencies respond to you." "Who are you?" "An interested observer." He tapped his fingers on the counter in a rhythm that felt just slightly off, like a familiar song played in the wrong time signature. "The boundaries are thinning, you know. Not just during the usual hours. Something's changed. I thought of what the voice on the phone had said. There's been a change in the pattern. Something new is pushing at the boundaries. What's changed? I asked. You. He smiled again. That too perfect smile. You're a catalyst, Mike Donovan. Your presence has disturbed the equilibrium. My hand moved to the silver cross beneath my shirt. How do you know my name? I know a great many things. I know about Chicago, about the visions you had, the things you saw that the doctors told you weren't real. He leaned forward. But they were real, weren't they? Just not of this world. My heart pounded. The hallucinations I'd experienced in Chicago. Faces morphing into impossible configurations. Shadows moving independently of their owners. Voices whispering from vacant rooms. Had been diagnosed as symptoms of my breakdown. But what if they were something else? What if I'd been seeing through the cracks even then? You're not a customer, I said quietly. Very perceptive. He smiled again, and this time I noticed that his gums were just slightly too dark, almost black against the perfect whiteness of his teeth. Let's say I'm a frequent visitor to this particular thin spot. I find humans fascinating. Your brief lives, your stubborn insistence on winning your time, your delightful capacity for fear. What do you want? Want? Oh, many things. To observe, to interact, to understand why certain souls, like yours, are so much more sensitive to the thinning of the veil. He took another sip of coffee. Mostly, I want to warn you. About what? The child in the parking lot. His expression grew serious. It's not what it appears to be. It's older than this land, older than the concept of childhood itself. It wears the form because you're instinctively drawn to it, programmed to protect the young of your species. He set down his coffee mug, but what it wants is not protection, it wants a vessel. A vessel? A body. To walk in your world permanently. He glanced toward the window, where dawn was still hours away. The rules keep it at bay, but it's growing stronger. It's found a weakness in the boundary. What weakness? His eyes, suddenly dark and bottomless, met mine. You. Before I could respond, the diner's phone rang. 1, 2, 3 times. I hesitated, then picked it up. Don't trust the Jayhawk, a familiar voice hissed through the receiver. It lies. I glanced at my customer, who was watching me with unnerving intensity. Who should I trust then? I asked the voice. No one, it replied. Not even yourself. The line went dead. I hung up slowly, unease crawling along my spine. Problems? The man in the KU hoodie asked, smiling that perfect smile. Just a wrong number. I wiped down the counter, trying to appear casual. So you were saying something about me being a weakness in the boundary? I was, wasn't I? He stretched, and for a moment his shadow on the wall behind him didn't match his movements. It seemed to stretch too far, with too many limbs. Your mind has already been opened. In Chicago, you saw beyond the veil. That created a vulnerability, a door, if you will, that had already been cracked open. And the child wants to use that door? The child, as you call it, is just one of many entities drawn to such openings. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. But yes, it's particularly persistent. And growing bolder. 2 nights in a row is unprecedented. I thought about rule number 6. If you see a child alone in the parking lot, do not go outside. Call Rosie immediately, regardless of the time. What happens if someone goes outside when the child appears? His expression darkened. They joined the collection. What collection? The child has many faces, many voices, all borrowed. He stood up, leaving his coffee half finished. A word of advice, Catalyst. The rules will protect you, but only if you follow them blindly. Once you start questioning, looking for loopholes or exceptions, he trailed off, his smile returning. Well, curiosity killed more than just cats. He pulled out a wallet and placed a $20 bill on the counter. For the coffee, it's only $2. The rest is for the information. He started toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Mike? The woman who used the employee bathroom yesterday morning? The one with the blue sedan? My blood ran cold. I hadn't mentioned her to anyone. What about her? Check the morning newspaper, front page. With that, he walked out, the bell finally jingling as the door opened and closed. I stood frozen for a moment, then rushed to grab the Shallow Creek Gazette that was always delivered early for the morning customers. The headline on the front page caught my eye immediately. Woman found dead on Highway 54. Cause unknown. The article described how a female driver had been discovered in her blue sedan at a rest stop just outside of town. No signs of trauma, no apparent cause of death. Her name was Lisa Carpenter, 28, from Wichita. She had been reported missing by her boyfriend when she failed to return from a planned weekend trip to Colorado. There was a photo from her driver's license. It was her, the woman who had used the employee bathroom yesterday morning. The article stated she was estimated to have been dead for at least 3 days. I dropped the newspaper, my hands shaking. If she'd been dead for 3 days, then what? Or who had I seen using the bathroom? What had walked out of our diner, driven away in her car, and waved goodbye with 2 long fingers? The silver cross felt heavy against my chest. I thought about rule number 7, the one rule Rosie had refused to explain. The bathroom in the far back is for employees only. If a customer insists on using it, direct them to the public restrooms. No exceptions. I found myself standing in the hallway, staring at the employee bathroom door. It was closed, as always. What was behind it? A bathroom, as I'd assumed. Or something else. The office where I'd spoken to Rosie earlier. Or something far worse. My hand reached for the doorknob almost of its own accord. I needed to know. I needed to understand. Just as my fingers brushed the metal, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I jumped, spinning around to find Rosie standing behind me. "Don't," she said quietly. "That's not for you. Not yet. What's in there? What really happened to that woman?" Rosie's pale eyes held mine. "Some doors shouldn't be opened, Mike. Some questions shouldn't be asked. I need to know," I insisted. "If I'm going to keep working here, I need to understand what I'm dealing with." She was silent for a long moment. "No," she said finally. "You don't need to understand. You just need to follow the rules." She glanced at her watch. "It's 3:58. Almost safe to look outside again." I followed her back to the main area of the diner, questions burning in my mind. The man in the KU hoodie had called me a catalyst. The voice on the phone had warned me not to trust him. Rosie was keeping secrets, and a woman who should have been dead had walked out of our employee bathroom. As the clock ticked over to 4:01 a.m., I felt something shift in the atmosphere. A releasing of tension, like a rubber band stretched to its limit, suddenly going slack. The danger hours were over, for tonight at least. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, that the rules that had kept this place safe for decades might not be enough anymore, and it was somehow my fault. I didn't go straight to Uncle Ray's after my shift ended. Instead, I drove aimlessly through Shallow Creek as the sun rose, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. The town looked so normal in the morning light, the small grocery store opening its doors, elderly men gathering at the local diner. Not Rosie's, but a family place called Maggie's that only operated during daylight hours. Kids waiting for the school bus on street corners. How could such ordinary people live so close to something so extraordinary without being consumed by it? Or maybe they were affected in subtle ways they didn't even recognize. Maybe the strangeness of Rosie's seeped into the town like groundwater contamination, showing up in odd behaviors and local superstitions. I found myself parked outside the Shallow Creek Public Library, a small brick building that probably hadn't updated its collections since the 90s. On impulse, I went inside. There was only one librarian, an elderly woman with a cloud of white hair and glasses that magnified her eyes to owl-like proportions. "Can I help you?" she asked as I approached the desk. "I'm researching local history," I said, "specifically anything about unusual occurrences at the diner on Highway 54. It's called Rosie's now, but it used to be the Crossroads, and before that, Midnight Eats," she finished, her expression changing from helpful to guarded in an instant. "Why are you asking about that place?" "I work there, night shift." She studied me for a moment, then sighed. "Follow me." She led me to a back room filled with filing cabinets and boxes labeled by year. "Local newspaper archives," she explained, pulling out a specific drawer. "These go back to the 1950s. If you're looking for incidents at that diner, there's plenty to find." She hesitated. "But I should warn you, some knowledge is dangerous, especially for someone who works the night shift there. I need to understand what I'm dealing with." She nodded reluctantly. "Very well. Start with these." She handed me a folder labeled Highway 54 Incidents, 1950 to 1975. I spent the next 2 hours poring over yellowed newspaper clippings. There were more incidents than I'd imagined. Missing persons, unexplained deaths, reports of mass hallucinations experienced by diner patrons. One article from 1968 described how all 12 customers present at the Crossroads one night in November claimed to have seen the same thing: the walls bleeding, the floor turning to quicksand, and patrons at neighboring tables transforming into creatures not of this earth. The most disturbing article was from 1972, describing how a night cook named James Harker had entered the employee bathroom and emerged 3 days later, speaking in tongues and exhibiting what the paper delicately called physical anomalies. He was committed to the state psychiatric hospital, where he reportedly died by suicide a week later by gouging out his own eyes and choking on them. By the time I left the library, my head was spinning with horrific details spanning 7 decades. The diner had a bloodier history than I'd realized, with a pattern that repeated over and over. Strange events, disappearances, rules added to prevent recurrences. And yet the place remained open. People still worked there. Why hadn't it been shut down? I found the answer in one of the most recent articles, from 2010. The county had attempted to condemn the property after a particularly gruesome incident involving the night manager and 3 customers who all died under mysterious circumstances. The very next day, the county commissioners unanimously reversed their decision, with no explanation given. One commissioner was quoted simply saying, "Some places need to stay open. Some doors can't be closed." I returned to Uncle Ray's only long enough to shower and change clothes. He was out, which was a relief. I wasn't ready to confront him with what I'd learned. Despite everything, I reported for my 3rd night shift as scheduled.
Yeah.
Part of me knew I should quit, walk away, drive until Shallow Creek was nothing but a bad memory in my rearview mirror. But a larger part needed answers, needed to understand what was happening at Rosie's and what my connection to it might be. The night started quietly. A few truckers, some locals grabbing late dinners. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Andrew, you a dick.
Betty gave me a curious look as she handed over the register. 3 nights, she remarked.
Yeah, I got a
Impressive.
little bit of movement now.
Is that a record?
Is common ghosts
I asked
attracted to
dryly.
human voices?
Close to it. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Listen, kid,
Lights are still on.
there's talk in town. About you. What kind of talk?
Oh, I got 3.
That you're different.
Is it
That
there?
things are changing at
3.
Rosie's since you
Yeah,
started.
Eyes
Yeah,
are
but like
gone.
She glanced toward the office, where Rosie presumably was.
I'm 100% gonna die.
Be careful tonight. That's all I'm
What's our
saying.
sanity at?
After she left, the diner emptied
I'm
out
not looking
quickly. By midnight,
Andrew, talk
I was
to us,
alone with
Andrew.
my thoughts
I
and the
don't
soft
know.
hum of the
This is
fluorescent
crazy.
lights.
I don't see
At
the one
12:37
that
a.m.,
says
Oh,
anything
the bell above the
about-
door
This is the door that
jingled.
closed.
My stomach
Yeah,
dropped
sanity
when I
is
saw
not
who it
super
was.
affected, so I'm gonna go
Larry
ahead and
Wilkins,
mark off
the man whose body would be found in a walk-in freezer 3 weeks from now, according to my opening account. I recognized him from the newspaper photo, accompanying
Still have
the article
power,
about his
isn't it?
death.
Andrew, are you in the kitchen?
A middle-aged
Andrew, buddy,
man
you
with a
got the
receding
cabinets
hairline
open?
and round
to,
glasses, wearing a rumpled
memorize
suit that had seen better days. He carried a
all these
briefcase
things.
and had the weary look of a traveling
what I have on me.
salesman
I have
at the
a
end
camera.
of a long day. Evening, he said,
Turning lights off.
settling at the counter. Or morning, I suppose.
Back
Coffee,
in the bedroom.
please. I poured him a cup with hands that weren't quite steady.
I mean, I'm
Was this
100%
it?
standing next
The
to
night
this
he
person,
died?
and it's
Was
only
I
at
about
2
to
or
become
3
part of whatever
for sure
led to his
on the
death?
EMF.
Passing through, I
Andrew.
asked, trying to keep my voice
You wanna
casual.
come be in my video?
Heading to
It
Wichita
says
for a
shades
sales
are very
conference,
shy,
medical
so I don't think it's
supplies.
shades. Shades
He
are
sipped
much
his
harder to
coffee.
find. Ghosts
Got a
will
late
not enter
start.
a hunt if
Figured
there are
I'd
two
drive
of
through
you
the
by.
night. He studied me over his glasses. You okay, son?
Mhm.
What's a
You
mimic?
look like you've seen a
Which one is
ghost.
the mimic?
Just
The
tired.
mimic is
I lied.
The one that
Anything
is
else I
elusive,
can get you?
mysterious copycat ghost that mirrors
He ordered a
traits and behaviors
sandwich,
of others,
which I
including
prepared
ghosts.
mechanically.
Oh, I seen it.
My
I
mind
seen it
racing.
behind you.
Oh,
Should
shit,
I
there
warn
he is.
him?
Oh, shit,
And
shit.
it
Tell him to
the light.
leave.
Yeah.
Get back on the
He was right in
road.
front of my ass.
Never
Fuck
stop at
this.
Rosie's again.
Yeah, that's
We're
right.
unsure
Would that change
what
the future?
this ghost is capable
Or was his
of.
fate
Several
already
reports have
sealed?
noticed ghost
Ooh,
orders.
dots. We got
Wait,
dots.
As I
We got
set his
dots.
sandwich before
We
him,
got dots.
I
Okay,
made a
evidence.
decision.
We got dots.
Listen, Mr. Wilkins.
We got
Alright, so we have
He
a
frowned.
Banshee,
I think it's
Deogen,
How do you know my
Goryo,
name?
Raiju, Oni,
I froze.
Amabo, Phantom,
I'd slipped
Fae,
up,
Yokai,
called
or
him by a
Yurei.
name he hadn't
Maybe a
provided.
phantom. What's
It's,
a phantom?
on your briefcase.
Phantom. You always
I
say
improvised.
phantom. Ghosts that can
Though it
possess the
wasn't.
living and inducing
He glanced
fear
down at his
into
plain
those
briefcase,
around it.
then
They
back
are
at me,
most commonly summoned
suspicion
from Ouija
dawning in his
boards.
eyes.
Strength, look at the phantom will
No,
drop
it's
your
not.
sanity considerably
Before I could
fast.
respond,
So,
the phone
but it has
rang.
an EMF
Your
level
1,
five
2,
on the
3
right
times.
shoe. So it's not right.
Excuse me, I said, grateful for the interruption.
Yeah, he was right in front of me.
I picked up the receiver.
I was touched.
Don't try to change
Did
it.
we get spirit
The familiar
box or
voice
not?
warned.
I haven't
Some
been able to
deaths
get
are
back in
fixed
the house
points.
to try it again.
Necessary.
1 second.
Necessary for
back
what?
here and do
Okay.
some sanity.
I
Because for a
whispered,
phantom, we
turning
need
away from
evidence.
Wilkins.
I'll try it.
The balance. The
Oh wait, I dropped
boundaries.
my spirit box.
One soul for
What do
many.
you guys have for a guess
The
right
voice
now? 'Cause
paused.
It's not right shoe.
He's mocked. Has been since he first
I had
crossed the
Raiju
state
as my
line.
guest.
Nothing
It's
you
EMF
do will
level
change
5.
that.
All we're hitting is like 2
I
or 3.
can't just let him die.
Yeah.
You already have. 3 weeks from now, remember? You're just experiencing it
Dots
out of
projector, ghost
sequence.
orb, ultraviolet. Have we
The
got
line went
ultraviolet?
dead.
No,
I returned to
haven't
find
seen
Wilkins
UV when I
watching
was
me with
looking
open
around.
suspicion.
It says,
Who was
Banshee
that?
A week in their
He
target
demanded.
before striking.
Wrong number.
The witness Banshee
I lied.
Sometimes hears,
You're a terrible
He
liar.
heard screaming.
He stood up,
With a
leaving his sandwich
parabolic
half-eaten.
microphone. Do we have that?
I think I'll hold
Oh,
out.
Yeah, I was gonna
Is
say
that
Relief
that?
flooded
Yeah,
through me.
He did, his been doing to me.
Maybe he
Yeah,
would
he's been
leave.
talking shit.
Maybe the future could be changed.
Yeah, but
Wait,
the Banshee
I
like,
blurted out.
yells
Don't-
and makes bad
Don't use the
sounds.
bathroom before you go.
I mean, he did that too.
He stared at me.
Oh, it busted the light.
What?
That's right.
Just, there's a gas station down the road with cleaner facilities.
So,
I said
Deogen,
lamely.
Goryo.
His
We had that a
expression
couple of
hardened.
times. Let's see.
You know what?
Using
I
a
do
video
need to
camera is
use the
only
restroom
way to
before
see
I
it,
get
but you
back on
guys
the
already
road.
saw it, so it can't be a
Where
Goryo.
is it? I pointed reluctantly to the
Alright?
public
You guys actually
bathrooms.
saw it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
fits
Through
straight
there.
up in front of me.
On the
Okay,
right.
so it can't be a
Without the
Goryo.
dot.
He nodded curtly and headed down the hallway.
Oni,
I stood frozen, listening.
Fae, Yokai, or Yuri.
After a minute, I heard the bathroom door
I think it's a
open,
yokai.
then footsteps,
Yokai.
not returning to the main diner, but
common
continuing
ghosts
further
attracted
down the
to human
hall,
voices can usually
toward
be
the
found
employee
haunting
bathroom.
family homes.
My
Talking
blood
near
turned to
yokai will
ice.
anger it, increasing
I
chances
hurried
of
after
attack. When
him,
hunting,
rounding the
yokai can
corner
only
just
hear
in time to
voices
see
close to it.
Wilkins turning the
Spirit
knob
box,
of the
ghost
employee
orb, and
bathroom
dots.
door.
Yeah,
So
that
I'll
might-
try-
Stop!
That what you
I
said
shouted.
earlier? Yeah.
You can't go in there.
Let me see here.
He
Let me
turned,
change my shit.
his expression
Alright, there we
defiant.
go.
Who picked up the
Earlier.
spirit
Why
box?
not?
Here, I'll
What
grab
are
the
you
spirit
hiding
box.
back here?
This-
You're not, ah,
It's
yeah.
for employees
Good.
only. Please, just use the
Let's
public
go try to
restroom.
get a spirit box.
There's
Don't we
something
need a
going on
picture
here.
too? We'll see.
He said, eyes
I'm
narrowing.
gonna go ahead and
I'm going to
drop.
find out what it is. He pushed the door open. I lunged forward, grabbing his
for our
arm,
objective, we need
but it
a
was too
picture.
late.
So I'm gonna try
The door
spirit
swung
box.
wide, and light spilled out
Coming
from
in.
whatever
I need
lay
light, though.
beyond.
Can you walk with me?
Wilkins
Yeah.
froze in the doorway, his body rigid with
It
shock.
doesn't get back to normal. It just
Oh my
No, it doesn't
God,
go back up.
he whispered. What is this? What is this place?
For the other objective?
I couldn't see past him,
Okay.
couldn't glimpse what he was seeing, but I heard it. A low, rhythmic pulsing, like the sound of a massive heart beating,
Do I have the
and
sound
beneath it,
recorder?
voices,
I think the sound recorder's still in
dozens,
the truck.
perhaps hundreds of
You're
voices,
holding it right
all
now, aren't you?
whispering at
No, I'm
once.
holding the spirit box.
Close the door,
trying to follow.
I pleaded. Please, Mr. Wilkins, close it
Give me
now.
my gun back. Give it.
Slowly, as if in a trance, he took a
Fucking
step
hell's all
forward,
in.
into the
Alright,
room, not away from it.
let's see,
It's beautiful, he murmured. I can see
Flashlight. Fuck that flashlight.
everything.
Alright.
Larry, don't.
Good.
I
Alright, I
reached
got
for
a
him
sound recorder.
again, but an
Okay.
invisible force repelled my hand,
I can do
preventing
this
me
fast
from
enough.
crossing the
I'll
We still do
threshold.
not have ghost riding.
He took another step
I've already
forward,
crossed it off.
then another.
You can check
Somebody
the
wanna-
garage.
The light from the room
Turn
grew
the lights
brighter,
back on.
pulsing
Oh,
in
lights are
time
on.
with the
It-
heartbeat
that's it.
sound.
The lights
I
are
got
on.
I
lights.
understand
I
now,
got lights.
Wilkins said, his voice taking on an odd, reverberating quality. I understand everything,
He's probably in this
Triggered.
bedroom
all the
again.
connections.
I think he's in here
all the
again. It's just
patterns.
going off.
He turned back to look at me, and his eyes were
Oh,
no
shit.
longer
He's right here in
human.
this bedroom.
They swirled with
He
light
Close
and
the door. He
darkness,
closed the door.
like miniature
Shit,
galaxies.
don't you do it.
You should see this, Mike.
Brett, I hate you so
You should
much.
join
Get
me.
in.
Come
I'm
back,
working.
I begged. Please.
Oh, fucking hell.
He smiled, a beatific expression that transformed his ordinary
How
face.
the fuck do you close this
I'll see you in
door?
3 weeks,
Same
he
way,
said.
open it.
Are we all
Then he walked fully into the light.
roll call? Roll call. Are we all still
The
alive?
door slammed shut with such
here.
force that it knocked me backwards. I scrambled to my feet and grabbed the knob, but it wouldn't turn. The door was locked, or perhaps sealed in some way I couldn't
Oh
comprehend.
shit! Is it walking?
I
through?
pounded
oh, my
on
God,
it,
it's breaking shit.
calling Wilkins's name, but there was no response. Only
It got me in the
silence from
closet?
beyond. When I finally
see?
gave up and returned to the main diner,
Oh, my goodness.
I found Rosie
Yep, they got me in
waiting,
the closet.
her pale eyes resigned. You broke rule number 7, she said.
Shh.
You let him use the
Where's
employee
this-
bathroom.
where's this asshole at?
I tried to stop him.
At least
I
I voted
protested.
beforehand.
Not hard
Hey, look at
enough.
me, I'm floating in the hallway.
She lit a cigarette, ignoring the no smoking signs.
Dude, come to the
And
closet
now
and
we
check
have
me
a
out, dude. I'm
problem.
floating.
What's going to happen to him? Nothing good.
Oh,
She
he's still in
exhaled
this
a stream
hallway.
of
I got black
smoke.
smoke in here somewhere.
He opened a
He's here
door
somewhere.
that wasn't meant for him.
Bruh.
Now he's part of what's on the other side.
Oh my
And in
god.
3
Coming
weeks?
back.
Yeah, he's haunting.
In 3 weeks,
He's
what's
about to
left of
fucking
him
get
will
me.
find its way
Oh,
back.
he's in the living room. He's in the living room. I can see
She
him.
fixed me with her unsettling
Hey,
gaze.
now he's going to the
And
bedroom
you'll be the
off
one to
side of the
find it
room.
in
Now
the
he's
freezer,
bedroom with a Jack in the
just
Box.
like you already
He's
told
leaving the
yourself
bedroom.
at the beginning of all this.
Fucking track
The
in
weight
bed.
of her words sank in. I had created a loop in time.
Everybody, make sure you're in
self-fulfilling
jail.
prophecy.
You're in charge of,
I
I would find Wilkins' body in the freezer
I think it's the
because I had already written about finding it in an account of events that hadn't happened yet.
Okay.
I don't understand any of
I
this,
heard it.
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah,
my
that's
voice
'cause he's like-
breaking.
Saint it.
You don't need to understand.
Just so
Rosie
you know, Brett and I are
replied,
in the lockers
her
right
voice
next to each other, so
surprisingly
everything
gentle.
I hear, she hears.
You just need to follow the rules.
Really? I'll just in the
That's what I've been
lockers?
trying to tell you. She checked her watch.
Yes, Sam, you gotta get it together.
It's 2:14.
I
1
don't know
minute
what
until
to-
you
what
can't
to
look
think between
outside.
Anomaly
Get
Project
ready.
and this game.
As I
It's
turned
walking
toward the
around, so there's
counter,
black
a
spot
sudden
outside.
realization hit me.
This is a lot worse, I believe.
Wait,
The jump
you
scares are
knew.
worse than
He's still
Anomaly.
You knew all of this would happen.
Me?
Rosie didn't answer,
Yeah, I can
You're the one
see-
but the
moving.
look in her
I
eyes
can
told
see-
me
is someone
everything.
dead?
You're running a freaking-
She had known.
No, Sam's hanging out
Maybe
of it
not the
halfway.
specifics,
No, I'm
Yeah.
not.
but she
Yeah,
had
you
known
are.
I would break
You're
rule number
absolutely straight.
7,
Now you're
that
halfway
Wilkins
up.
would
Now you're
open that
halfway up
door,
hanging out of it. Look up.
that I would be
Look up.
writing this account
There you
3
go.
weeks
Now get
later,
your hand out with a
trying to
flashlight.
make sense of it all.
God bless it.
This
I don't know
is
what
great.
The
Did he
clock
get you?
ticked over
How's
to
that?
2:15 a.m.,
She's just sticking
and
out. Are you
outside,
inside?
in the darkness of the
I'm in
parking
locker
lot,
beside you.
a
Sam.
child began to
No,
laugh.
I'm on top of Britt. My bad.
And so here I am, typing this account in a motel
I'm
room
in the
outside
locker with
Wichita,
Britt.
exactly as I described at the beginning.
Okay. There's
3
smoke
weeks have
everywhere.
passed since Larry Wilkins walked
Sam
through
doesn't
that
fit the
door.
locker. I think she's just
3
tall.
weeks of nightmares, of questions without answers, of wondering
Where's he
if I
at?
could
There's
have done
smoke
something
everywhere.
differently. Yesterday, just as Rosie predicted,
He's hunting.
I
don't
found
think
what
we have a
remained
choice
of
here. I
Larry
think I might just have
Wilkins
to come out and
in the
face
walk-in
fucking
freezer.
thing.
I
No,
won't
remember
describe
Jason
what I
has a
saw,
closet for for a hot
Some
second.
details are better left unwritten.
I mean, if it works,
Let's
I mean,
just
I'm not
say
seeing
that
him,
whatever
though.
came
There's a lot
back
of smoke in the bedroom.
wasn't entirely Larry
What's the activity
anymore,
level right now?
and whatever changes had begun in that room behind
Come
the
on out.
employee
You're
bathroom
trying to make a
Come on
break for
had continued in his
And-
absence.
Right
Too hot.
The police came,
Oh my God.
asked their
That's
questions.
a terrible idea, but
Rosie
sure.
handled most of it.
Wow.
Her story practiced and smooth.
It's like I'm a sacrifice.
tragic accident, she told them. The lock on the freezer
We need
sometimes
evidence. We need
malfunctioned.
evidence.
He's not in
Poor
the- he's not
Mr.
in the
Wilkins
garage.
must have gone looking for ice cream
What's our
or a
activity?
cold
Is it
drink
zero?
and gotten
All right, so
trapped.
come on, run for
They
it.
believed her, of
Come on.
I
course.
don't even know
The
where
officials
the door
in
is.
Shallow
There it
Creek
is.
always believe
Let's go.
Rosie.
If y'all stay together,
They
come on.
have to.
At least when y'all make
The
it. Come on.
alternative would
I'm
mean
with you. I don't see him. He's
acknowledging
not
what
in the
really
hallway.
happens at that crossroads.
Dang it.
What has always
Oh
happened
shit! I'm in the
there.
fucking garage.
Uncle
in the
Ray was
basement.
waiting when I got
Oh,
home.
why'd you go to the basement?
A glass
Go
of
out the
whiskey
door, Sid.
already
Go out
poured
the door.
for me.
Straight ahead. Go
You
out
found
the door,
him.
straight ahead.
It's
He
locked.
said.
He is hunting.
Not a question.
He's
Yeah,
hunting.
he's hunting.
I nodded,
Hide.
downing the whiskey
He's
in
going-
one
he's going
burning
to the door. He's
gulp.
going upstairs.
I'm dead.
It's
in the
not your
fog.
fault.
Y'all
He told me.
suck.
Well, you closed
Some
the door
things
as soon
are
as you
fixed
came out. I can't
points.
do that. Where's Sam?
They happen
All right.
because they've already happened.
So where's Brett?
That doesn't make any
Where'd he go?
sense. Time doesn't work the same at thin spots. He poured me
Door's
another
green.
drink.
You should be able to leave.
Rosie's exists in many moments simultaneously. Past, present, future,
Can't even see the door.
all bleeding together.
That was not my fault.
I thought
that
about what the
he
man
decided
in the
to waste
KU
you
hoodie
alive.
had
Oh, he was
said
about to start again.
about me
The heart
being a
rate went up
catalyst.
As soon as I left.
Yeah,
Is
The heart
that
rate
why I'm
started
here?
As soon as I left.
Because I was always meant to be
Holy
part of
holy.
this.
Ass fucking
You're
ghost.
sad.
Uncle
Sanity
Ray's
and-
eyes, so like my
Yeah,
father's,
we've hit the
held a
sanity
sadness
objective.
I
That's
hadn't
It's
noticed
back to
before.
zero. It's back to zero.
I don't know, son, but I do
front
know you
door's
have a
still
choice
red,
now.
so give it a second.
You can leave.
I'm out. I'm in the
Drive
garage.
away. Never look back.
Door is green.
Will it matter?
Oh, is there an upstairs?
If some
I
things
didn't
are
see
fixed
upstairs.
points,
Yes.
if
No, it's
time is just a
downstairs.
loop at
Oh, it's
Rosie's,
just the basement. That makes sense.
maybe
Yeah.
not to the
No,
diner.
the front door is
But it
red.
would matter to
Well,
you.
That's the front. No, you're right. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
I
It's
considered
it's
it.
upside down.
Packing
Capture
my
a
meager
photo of the
belongings,
ghost.
pointing my car east or
Capture two
west or anywhere that
paranormal
wasn't
sounds
here,
with a sound recorder.
starting over somewhere new, somewhere
An
normal.
average sanity
But the
below
truth
2%.
is,
Who had the
I'm not
sound
sure
recorder?
normal exists for me anymore. Not
I
after
had
what
one,
I've seen,
but I didn't
not
catch
after what
anything.
I've been part of.
'Cause I took
And
it
there's
in
something
died.
else. Something I'm reluctant to
Great.
admit even to
All right.
myself.
Hey, I
A part of
Ready,
me
Wolfie?
wants to know
We're gonna go
more,
get the sound recorder.
wants to understand what's behind that door, what
I
connects me
didn't
to
pick
this
up any spirit
place,
box. Hold on, don't go
what
in
it
just
means
yet.
to be a catalyst.
Evidence.
So
gonna
I'm
say
going
no spirit
back.
box and see what that gets. It
Tonight
gives
will
us
be
an
my
Oni, a
4th
Yuri,
shift
or
at
a Raiju.
Rosie's.
Banshee,
I've memorized the rules, wear my silver
I'm gonna
cross
stick with
faithfully,
Raiju.
and understand now
Don't
why
come
they
in yet. Don't go in
exist.
yet.
Don't go in
Uh,
yet, 'cause I'm
I've read
looking
through
right
the
at
We're all-
leather-bound book Rosie gave me,
We're all
Yeah,
dead.
studied the
we're all
patterns,
level
the
5.
incidents, the evolution of the
Wolfie's-
rules over
he's aware.
decades.
He's alive?
I think I'm beginning to see
you're not
the
dead?
larger
No.
picture,
No.
the
No,
web of
it's not.
connections
Okay.
that binds
I'm not dead.
Rosie's to whatever lies
must be nice.
beyond that door.
Ghost
I don't
orbs,
understand it all yet, but I will.
Ultraviolet. Okay, let's
Something
see.
tells me I'm meant to.
Oni.
The
just
child in
trying
the
to figure
parking
out what
lot
to
appeared
take.
again
gonna
last
watch-
night,
I'll be watching
Five,
that.
Rosie
everything
told me.
sense.
3 nights in a row.
Okay, you watch
It is.
activity.
Unprecedented.
Do not walk
It knows
there. There's
I'm
a
different.
camera right here as
It
you come
knows
in the
I'm
front door.
changing things just
Take
by
the
being
left.
there.
It's right there in the little hallway.
Maybe that's a good
It's sitting on
thing.
the ground. If you want
Maybe
to
the
get
rules
so
need to
for
evolve
Oni,
again.
It's
Maybe
recording,
I'm
too.
meant to write new ones.
Activities is
Or
0.
maybe I'm deluding myself,
It's pointed at
being
this
drawn
bedroom. You
deeper
can't do
into
this way, you've
something I
already
can
got it.
never truly
Okay,
comprehend
so potentially
or control.
could be an Oni.
Perhaps
It
I'll
says
end up
Oni
like so
loves to
many
scare their
others.
victims as much as
Another
possible
incident in the
before
book.
He's moving. I heard him.
Another cautionary
They're often
tale.
seen in
Get
physical
Another
Hang on,
rule
leave
written in
the-
blood.
Oh, shit. All right.
Either
you're
way,
dead.
of death.
In an hour,
Don't
I'll
get by
drive
yourself.
back to Shallow Creek.
Strength,
I'll
Oni
park in the nearly
are
empty
much
lot
more
at
active
Rosie's.
whilst people
I'll
are
put on my
nearby and will
apron,
drain their
count the
sanity
register,
faster when
brew a
manifesting.
fresh pot of coffee,
Did you
Only
hear it?
and I'll wait
disappear-
to see what comes
Yes, I
through
did.
when the barrier's
Only
thin.
You're by yourself.
disappear.
It's what I was
I heard
always going to
only
do.
disappear less
It's what I've
often
already
while
done.
hunting their prey. I'm gonna stick 'em with a Raiju. We'll see what happens. All right, do you want to leave on that note?